comes Granlund. Nikola to the net. Shoots. Score! Mikael Granlund wins it for Finland in overtime.
Can Finland compete without Sasha Barkov? The Finns have always been known as a plucky, hard-to-knock-off team in international hockey, but this year must do it without their biggest star out with a torn ACL. This is the third part in my series that goes over projected Olympic rosters for the Big Five hockey nations. Today is the Finns, the Czechs and Americans have already been done, and we'll finish with Sweden and Canada in the next 2 weeks. For some ground rules, these are specifically the rosters I'd create to give what in my opinion is the best chance for each of these countries to win gold in Milan come February. I'll go over line by line what I've picked and why each player needs their spot on the team in their specific role, keeping in mind that teams will need everything from offensive stars to shut down penalty killers. I'm filling these out to the full 25-man Olympic roster sizes, so 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, and 3 goalies will be on each roster. With that out of the way, let's take a look at who I think should be named to the Finnish Olympic team. At forward, we're starting with Lehkonen, Hintz, and Rantanen. With this line, I do think that the Finns are going to want to try and load up their top 6, and specifically top line, with all the offensive talent they have. Roope Hintz and Mikko Rantanen have some built-in chemistry from their time in Dallas, so I think, keeping them together probably makes sense. Hintz's speed kind of helps with Rantanen's game. He likes to kind of follow up on the rush and be able to create time and space that way, being the trailer and just coming in and, being able to make plays, shoot, do a whole bunch of things. Then you put them with a guy like Arturi Lehkonen. He's going to be a key penalty killing forward on this team as well. He's a great forechecker. He knows where to go on the ice to kind of, go in front, find soft ice in the slot. Overall, he can kind of just be the dog on this line in some ways. Go in there, get the puck. Roope Hintz can do that too. I think it's going to be a lot of, going in, getting Mikko Rantanen the puck in good spots and, seeing what he can do with it. Obviously, he's an elite player in this league, so he's going to be their star this year with no Sasha Barkov. It's going to be kind of up to Mikko Rantanen to drive the attack. So I think putting guys like Hintz, who he's got chemistry with, and Lehkonen, who just kind of makes sense in that role, will lead to a good first line that can kind of let Rantanen be the best version of himself. On the second line, I have Mikael Granlund with Aho and Tolvanen. Granlund is a great player. He's just had some problems with injuries this year. He's a great playmaker. Sebastian Aho is a really good second-line center. I think that's probably one of the bigger strengths of this team right now is their center depth. Eli Tolvanen is a shooter. I will say that you could probably put Patrick Laine here instead. I'll get to him in a little bit, but I do have Tolvanen here because I think he's a little bit better of a player 5-on-5. The kind of idea here is that Granlund's the playmaker, Tolvanen's a shooter, and Aho can kind of just do it all as a centerman and just help out however he needs. He is the best player on this line. This is definitely the most speculative line that I've made with this group, and it could definitely be changed around a little bit. Again, Patrick Laine could be up there if you want a bit more of a scoring touch. We'll see. On the third line, I have Eetu Luostarinen with Anton Lundell and Teuvo Teravainen. Obviously, Luostarinen and Lundell play together a lot with Florida. Usually they're with Brad Marchand. Teuvo Teravainen's a little bit of a different player, but it's the same kind of idea. It's going to be a third line that can just kind of do it all. They can, get start in the defensive zone. They can make plays. They're strong through the neutral zone. They're responsible. They're just kind of a lot of what you want in a third line and what the Finns want in a third line. Obviously Lundell is a very responsible center. Luostarinen is a good two-way forward. Teravainen maybe not quite as much, but he's a veteran and he's a good playmaker. I think this is a line that they can be pretty safe with, and I think for the Finns to win this tournament, they're going to want to be pretty safe. They're going to want to get to play their game, clog up the neutral zone, try and keep it a low-scoring game. So I think this line will be able to do that, even if there is a bit of a talent mismatch with some of the bigger nations. They can kind of play their role and know that they don't have to go and outscore their opponent. They just have to keep it even, so they can go out and be able to do that. Then on my fourth line, I have Kaapo Kakko, Oliver Kapanen, and Joel Armia. This is a line that can be pretty heavy on the wings, which I think is nice and a little bit different from some of the other wingers that Finland have, especially in that middle six. Kaapo Kakko, lots and lots of skill, former second overall pick, has kind of found himself a different role in Seattle than what maybe would have been expected when he got drafted to the Rangers. But I think he can be a useful piece on the fourth line here. Joel Armia is kind of the same thing. He's going to be important to their penalty kill. He's a bit of an inconsistent player, but when he's on his game, he's super, super strong on the puck. He's got great hands. He's got a decent shot. And then I have them with a rookie, Oliver Kapanen, who I think has been the fourth best Finnish center in the NHL this year. So I have him in here. He's got a great shot. He's pretty defensively responsible. He can take face-offs. And I think putting him with two big wingers in Kakko and Armia should kind of put Kapanen in a good spot to kind of just play his game. Once again, this is a similar kind of thing to the third line. They're going to want to be responsible. They're going to want to be pretty physical. They're going to want to just clog the game up. And I think that they're going to be able to do that with the way that they're set up. My extra forwards, I have Patrick Laine and Erik Haula. I touched on Laine a little bit earlier. You could dress him as the 13th forward and just play him on the power play, and if you need a goal, he's definitely a specialty player. He is injured right now. His timeline seems to be lining up, so he should be ready just about in time for the Olympics, but not too sure. There's a chance you could put an Achu Rachu in there instead if Patrick Laine is not ready to go. And then Erik Haula is my other extra forward. A little bit more of an offensive touch than the centers I have in the bottom six. Again, if they get to a point where they think they need a little bit more scoring, maybe Haula goes in there for a Kapanen or something like that. But I don't quite trust him defensively the same way, and knowing the way that the Finns should probably be setting up, I think that the centers I have in there fit what they need to do a little bit better. On to D, I'm starting with Miro Heiskanen and Esa Lindell. This is a pretty obvious pairing. They're going to probably play upwards of 30 minutes a night each, just looking at the rest of this D core. They have built-in chemistry together with Dallas. It seems like Dallas has every single Finnish player in the league. They're two very high-level defensemen. Miro Heiskanen's having a fantastic year, finally getting healthy after the injury that kept him out of the Four Nations last year. They really missed him. Esa Lindell was their first defenseman there and actually played pretty well. I think he's going to be fantastic in a more number two role here alongside a guy in Heiskanen who he plays with a lot. I think that's going to be maybe the pairing that plays the most in the whole tournament. And my second pair, I have Niko Mikkola and Henri Jokiharju. Mikkola's back-to-back Stanley Cup champ with the Panthers. He's kind of really come into his own as a solid defenseman. Henri Jokiharju has had a better season and a little bit of a better career since being moved to Boston. He is also injured right now, but I don't believe it's going to take him out of the tournament. It doesn't seem that way at least, so I do have him on the second pair right now. Then the third pair, I have Urho Vakanainen and Olli Mata, two NHL defensemen. They're pretty decent puck movers. They both have all right size. They might not play the most, but hopefully they're two guys that you can kind of throw out there, and they shouldn't make any crazy mistakes. They shouldn't be too bad. Obviously, the D is the weakest part of the Finnish roster, but I do think that they'll be all right. Vakanainen's had a pretty good year with the Rangers. He's finally found a role in the NHL after kind of struggling in Anaheim. Maybe it would have been better this year if he got out of the Greg Cronin system, but under Mike Sullivan, he's had a better year. And Olli Mata's been around for a long time. He kind of knows the ropes a little bit. He's been a member of the Finnish team for a while. Then I have Nicklas Matenpalo as my extra defenseman. He was on the Four Nations team last year. Because of the Heiskanen injury, they kind of needed him to play more than they maybe wanted to. But I think as a seventh defenseman, again, it's not ideal. It's not as good as some of the other teams in this tournament. But sticking to the system and playing the way that Finland usually plays at international competitions, I think they'll be able to survive on D. And even if it's not their strongest position, they can really ride their top guys and kind of get there. Then in net, I'm keeping it the same way as I had it in the Four Nations. Jussi Saros is a starter. He hasn't had the best past couple of years in the NHL, but he's been their best goaltender for a while. Ever since Pekka Rinne retired, he kind of took the reins in both Nashville and with the national team. So I do have him as a starter. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is the backup. He's kind of dealt with injury a little bit this year, but he's gotten back, and he's had an all-right season with Buffalo. He's definitely a little bit inconsistent still at the NHL level, but I have him as a backup in this. And then Kevin Lankinen as the third goaltender, who is also dealing with injury right now, but should be healthy in time. He played a few games last year at the Four Nations. Again, up and down season with the Vancouver Canucks. I think they have three solid goaltending options. I definitely think Saros comes in as a starter, but maybe if things go south like they did at the Four Nations, stuff can change. But I don't think they should be too concerned about goaltending. Again, it's pretty kind of locked in what you would expect it to be. But overall, that's what I have for the Finnish Olympic team. They usually play, greater than the sum of their parts, and I don't think this team is going to be any different. Again, no Sasha Barkov kind of means that every other guy is going to have to play a little bit bigger of a role than they would have before without their captain. So we'll see how it ends up being with Finland. I am a little bit excited to see this team in the ice. The Finns are always fun to play, just the buy-in that they get and the love they have for playing for their country.